and our man Will's the preview by the numbers, Kings Pacers, available on the ESPN 1320 website. No one dives into the numbers like our man Will Z does. Will, let's start here. You wrote about Sabonis and Malik Monk and how that pairing seems to be clicking so well. What did your deep dive tell you about those two?
Yeah, I wanted to start off the article with some Sabonis love because, like you've said before, in the trade, he always kind of gets like the forgotten man. So looked into some Sabonis and Monk numbers. A lot of people have talked about the Sabonis-Herter connection, but Sabonis and Monk, I thought, have been kind of building that connection over the last few games or so too. And it shows in the numbers. So over the last 5 games, Monk's shooting 60% on field goal attempts that are off of Sabonis passes. And that breaks down to 64% on 2-point attempts and 55 on 3-point attempts. So it's just nice to see that chemistry, not only with Sabonis and Herter, but Sabonis and other players. And gets me excited for where they'll be at the end of the season when they all have more time to play together.
Malik has just been such an incredible playmaker. I've said this to you yesterday, James. I did not know that aspect of his game was this strong.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that what we've seen from him, he's just taken over the second unit. It's not just, as a lead scorer. It reminds me a lot of like what we saw from young Lou Williams, from Jamal Crawford, where they were more than just scorers. They were able to get their teammates involved. And when you're as dynamic a scorer as he is, and you have free reign to do whatever it is that you want to do on that with that second unit, that you draw so much attention, and that's what's happening. He's drawing attention, and then he's getting guys like Chimezie Metu. You have to remember, he's not out there with, De'Aaron Fox and Keegan Murray and Harrison Barnes most of the time. He's not even out there with Sabonis the whole time. So he's got to create for guys who aren't starters, and that's different. And I think he's done a really good job of drawing so much attention to himself and then creating.
I think it's pretty amazing. So, sorry, Will. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, you're good. I just wanted to point out that Monk's 4.3 assists off the bench are the 5th most of all bench players, with at least 5 games played. So like, he's leading the league in bench assists almost, up with Westbrook, John Wall, Poole, and Scotty Barnes. So, I mean, those are certified passers.
That is not a bad list of guys right there at all. It's also amazing, and I think you touched on this in the preview today too, Will, is Sabonis got comfortable really, really quick. That was one thing I was a little concerned about heading into this year. Is his time last year was so limited, particularly his time with De'Aaron Fox was so limited. And then, both guys get hurt. The offseason gets here. The roster essentially gets blown up. And it's like, okay, Sabonis, Fox, go out there and make magic together. And somehow, like De'Aaron, it's one thing to expect it from De'Aaron because of how long he's been here and how ingrained he is in the organization, even with the new crop of players. But for Sabonis, still kind of the new guy, he got comfortable really, really quickly.
Yeah, it's super impressive. And I think it speaks to the type of players that Monty's bringing in. Is just, we hear it a lot, the smart IQ players, how they're able to kind of quickly adapt to each other's games.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, like this season is about sacrifice, right? It's about a bigger goal. Like everybody has to be all in, but that all in mentality is like, look, the focus is everybody has to accept what they're doing and try to flourish. And Sabonis is the ringleader of that. So while he may not be the most vocal guy, he's the guy right now who's averaging less than 17 points per game because he's trying to get everyone else involved. I asked him about it today. Is there a point where you might need to be a little more selfish as far as an offensive player? And he said, yeah, but my job is to be a facilitator with this team, but I still have to start looking for those opportunities to get myself, more involved in the offense. And the reason why that is because when you have a player like Sabonis, who is a walking bucket, and his shooting percentages and everything else are so high. It's that when things go wrong in a game and some team has a 6-0 run on you, and you can feed a ball down to a guy like Sabonis and almost every single time get a bucket. Inside the paint, he's going to get you what's his stat, Will? What's his shooting numbers inside the circle at the rim? I mean, it's got to be like in the high 70s, high 80s.
Yeah. It was, last I checked, it was like 75 or so. Give me
Okay.
just.
Yeah. So,
but recently it was in the 80s in the more recent games.
Yeah. And that's my point. Like, when you need to stop a run, what you don't need is a Buddy Hield 3-point shot with 21 from 32 feet with 21 seconds left on the shot clock. That's not what you need. What you need is feed the post, have a guy back it down and score at a high percentage and get you back on the right side of things. You can't let a 6-0 run become a 10 or a 12-0 run or a 16-0 run, which is what we saw in a couple of games here. I think, was it the Celtics game where they finished a third on a 16-0 run? That run went to 19-0 in the early fourth. Well, those are killers. And the Kings during that whole entire stretch took nothing but ill-advised, bad, just horrific shots. Either they were trying to slow things down and got late shot clock shots up, or they just took bad jumpers. And it's like, in those moments, that's where like a guy like Zebo was so valuable. Just throw it to the guy who can get you a bucket 80% of the time or get to the free throw line and stop what's happening.
And Sabonis was doing that, wasn't he, against Boston?
Well, yeah, but when they pulled him out in the late third, they pulled him out in the third to get him his rest, and that's when they got blown out. Yeah.
Will, let's shift to Tyrese. James and I were talking moments ago. Tyrese is almost certainly going to be an all-star this year. He's leading the league in assists. He really is having he's just having an incredible season, kind of spearing this run that the Pacers are on that maybe a lot of people didn't expect. What do Tyrese numbers show you besides that insane 40 straight assists without a turnover?
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about the assists, but he's also averaging career highs in points and rebounds. The rebounds especially was a little bit of a surprise for me. He's at 4.7. And then he's also getting a lot of steals, 1.8 a night for fourth in the NBA. We saw it last year. He's just so good in the passing lanes, and it seems like that's just continuing to be the case in Indiana. So his passing gets the most attention, but he's really showing some overall numbers across the board.
And go ahead.
Argentina just got that second goal that Jesse's in there screaming about, I'm sure. Yeah, that's big. So they're up
everybody good here?
Do the show. Don't even worry about me.
All right.
Fantastic.
I want to make
He's
sure
locked in a little room. He can be like the Garfield, like old stick on your window guy. He's just bouncing around in there and losing his mind. Yeah, hey, Will, I'll point out when it comes to Halliburton, this is something I talked about during the draft. Like, that's that crazy season where, first of all, Halliburton got hurt in like January that year, but then we had the pandemic and the shutdown. So I wrote 23 mock drafts that year because that's kind of what happened. That's just the way the season went. And I kept saying all through my mock drafts, if it translates, and it's not just to scoring, because the questions about a scoring were, can he get that shot off at the pro level? And I think a lot of people thought, no, there's no way he's going to get that off, right? Because it's a little slow, it's a little awkward, it's a little Kevin Martin-esque. And then it was like, okay, will he be a great assist man at the next level? Everyone's like, okay, well, he averaged a little over 5. And then the rebounding thing was the same thing. He was a really good rebounder at the college level. He averaged, over 5 boards a game. I think the number that sticks in my head is like 5.7. Maybe I'm wrong. And then in Sacramento, that wasn't what they did. They didn't send their guards back during that era to go get the ball. And we're seeing Fox have this blow up as a defensive rebounder. But I think Halliburton is also looking at like, hey, that's something I can do. That's something he's good at. He's not a big, guy for contact, but there's so much room in his game for improvement. And I think it's really exciting because everything at the college level at this point, like 3 years in, is fully translating.
And it's fun just to see him get to flourish in that more expanded role. I'm happy for him. He's seems like a great guy. Again, a trade that works out for both sides is a good thing, and it's hard to know if his numbers would be the same on the Kings this year, but it's definitely safe to say that with his expanded role and kind of ability to do everything in Indiana, he's getting that love for sure.
We'll end with this one, a trade that works out for everybody. Well, they still have a guy that's constantly talked about in trade conversations, and I think he's been pretty valuable to what the Pacers have been doing, and that's Miles Turner. Any numbers stand out regarding Miles Turner?
Yeah, so Turner's also having a career year, career highs in points, rebounds, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage. He's up to 39.7 from three, which has been a huge jump for him, and free throw percentage. And then he's still getting it done with the 2.6 blocks. So that's one of my big things to watch tonight is how the Kings excel at getting to the rim, and not only getting to the rim, but finishing. They shoot 70% at the rim. But the Pacers on the flip side, rest in peace flip side, Pacers opponents only shoot 60%. So it'll be interesting to see, will the Kings still get their shots to go, or will the Pacers lock them down in the inside, or will it meet in the middle? So I put that as my swing stat for the game.
Oh, very good. And there's an interesting note here from not KJJK, the Halley effect. It's that Chris Paul thing. You make your bigs better. We saw Tyrese do it with Rashawn Holmes. We've seen Chris Paul do it with pretty much everyone he's ever played with at that position. Now Tyrese is doing it with Miles Turner.
Yeah, I mean, he is. Yeah, he's one of the most versatile setup mans that you're going to run into, because it's not, I mean, he can draw and kick. He does his jump passing, which I know drives a lot of people crazy, the old Rod Strickland jump pass. But the thing with him is that his floater is so incredibly impactful that you never know if he's going for a floater or if he's going to hit the roll man. So while he's not great at like getting all the way to the basket, like on repeatedly during a game, he is really good with that floater. And again, you're sitting there wondering the whole time, is he gonna float it at the rim, or is he gonna float it to his big man who's gonna hammer on you? And I think it'll be an interesting matchup. The Kings have worked really hard in the pick and roll. I think they've been pretty solid in the pick and roll. I guess, Will, that's a good question for you. Like, where are the Kings pick and roll defense? Because this is a team that is going to pick and roll you to death with those bigs.
Will's just 2 clicks away from a stat. That's
always.
what he told us.
Just two.
That one I might have to take it back and do some research on.
Okay.
It's hard. I should subscribe to Cleaning the Glass. I think they have the best pick and roll numbers. I do most of my work just on the NBA site, but I'll see what I can find
for a long time, and then I realized I can't read it. Like, I don't know what all of these numbers mean, so I'm just going to unsubscribe to it. Not that different than Pro Football Focus. Pro Football Focus put out all of these rankings. What the hell do these mean? Forget it. Give me my $75 back. I can't read this. We'll let you do some work off that on that offline, but we appreciate you as always. You can check out Will's previews over on ESPN 1320.net. We'll see you tonight, my man.
Appreciate it, guys.